Welcome to Forensic Friday.
Where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hello.
Oh, hello.
No baby yet.
No,
No
hanging
baby yet.
on. She's
This is
hanging on.
this is the week, I think, though. I feel like this might be the week.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if our listeners know that she keeps flipping.
Oh yeah, she keeps flipping. I mean, our continuity is gonna suck because we keep talking about things.
Oh, I know.
Episodes are
I
gonna
don't
drop
know.
whenever.
Yeah, and I don't know when we're going to release all the.
Yeah, so if you hear something weird, just keep it moving. It's fine.
It's fine. But yeah, she keeps flipping. So this week is the week that she's due.
Yes.
And the doctors are saying, here's the thing. Doctors I love Western medicine. I also
Sure.
love natural remedies. I'm a fan of both,
Yeah.
I think balance is key. Also, doctors like to get really ahead of things.
Yes.
And so they're recommending me to be induced if she doesn't show up by Friday.
Yeah.
And I don't think she will show up by Friday.
You said you're able to request to be induced or you just
They're like recommending me for me to be induced.
okay, so she's coming this week, man.
I mean, yeah, if I choose to be induced.
Mm. What's their reason?
Well, that's the thing. They said because after 40 weeks, there's higher chance of like preeclampsia and
Yeah.
just things going wrong.
Oh, this is about being a geriatric. I went through some of this even at 30. They don't say it always, but they make
Yeah.
recommendations like, well, we'd really love for you to deliver between 39 and 40 weeks. And they don't
Hmm.
really tell you all the backstory, but they're
Yeah.
talking all these things that
Yeah.
like they were so worried about preeclampsia for me because my mom had it too.
Yeah.
It was not that big of a deal, but they started
Yeah.
kind of, you know,
Everyone gets it differently. I don't have it. Like they keep, I have perfect blood pressure, all that. The
yeah.
only thing that I have is in my left leg and foot. My left foot is way more swollen than my right, and the inner part of my left leg hurts. So I'm like nervous about a blood clot, but that's like my hypochondriac brain.
Your prego hypochondria.
Yeah.
Here's the thing though with the preeclampsia. First of all, it's just a baddie. It's bad.
Yeah.
You don't want it.
No, I know. Well, we have a friend who had it. I don't want to say her name on our podcast, but she showed me a picture of her feet
Hmm.
and it was terrifying.
Well, and even some of my like tiny friends like you,
Yeah.
they've had trouble over 30 over the due date. Like doctors don't really like people in their 30s going over their due date. They told
Yeah.
me that when I was pregnant too.
Yeah.
So that's why they might be saying, "Hey, maybe we'll induce you, you know?"
Yeah. Who knows? But I keep hearing all these things. I'm like, getting induced makes labor worse.
Oh, here's the thing. Everybody says all the things, okay?
I
Everybody's
know.
opinion. Your
Yes.
body is your body, but the truth is they're so good in the hospital. There's nobody better than labor and delivery nurses. They will take
Yeah.
care of you. You'll be fine no matter what you decide to do.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
You
Our
will.
doctor on Friday was hilarious. She was like, "Well, she's head down now."
Mhm. You're like, so you're not going to celebrate this with me, are you? Nope.
And no, she was celebrating. She was hilarious. She was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I can't really say half the things she said because I don't want to offend people, but
It's funny.
it's fine.
We were cleaning out, I thought of you today because we were cleaning out my parents' basement. So we're looking through all this old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed a couple things that I'm probably going to give my nieces. I grabbed something Gray might want. Like I just got a
Aw.
couple cute little things. But I was thinking about how much stuff you amass over the years, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, and oh my gosh, I found stuff from that boyfriend that I burned everything from.
Okay.
I found his senior picture he gave me and all of our prom pictures and all
Oh,
this.
fun.
Kind of. I mean, it was just weird, but I'll show
Oh,
you. I'm gonna bring some of them tomorrow.
I'm weird. I like stuff like that. I have like no emotional connection to it, which
Uh,
is Probably strange, but like the blanket that I talked about, Preston's like, we need to keep that in our guest room on the bed.
Oh my gosh. I'll
And
show
we're
you
gonna.
tomorrow. I'll bring a couple funny things tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so today we're talking about serial killers
Yeah.
because we're doing a serial killer case on Friday.
Yes.
So I thought it might be kind of interesting to talk about serial killer trends
Okay.
over time, some statistics,
Hmm.
and I really want to discuss with you a couple of these things in terms of why is it this way?
Hmm.
Because we know a lot about the tendencies of serial killers, demographics, all of that, but it is interesting to talk about why.
Yeah.
So I have a couple initial things I want to lay out for you and then a couple points for discussion.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, this was surprising to me.
Okay.
There's been a decline in serial killer activity in the past decade or so.
Well, that's fascinating.
Why do you think that might be?
A decline?
A decline. There are
Uh,
less serial killers that we
I
know of.
think because our forensics is so much better than it used to be,
I think
and
so.
they're scared,
I think so too.
to be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to commit a crime now, I mean, shoot, you can't like go down the street without some camera seeing you.
Yes. And also, they tend to target vulnerable populations, sex workers,
Mm-hmm.
homeless,
Mm-hmm.
just really vulnerable people. And I think there are a few more safety nets than there used to be. And we still have a lot of work to do. But when I think about downtown Colorado Springs, when I think about some of these places, they have a big rescue mission now that's actually really nice with a lot of resources and a lot of beds. And so I wonder if maybe in some of our metro areas in particular,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a little bit more in terms of resources. But I don't know. That's just a theory,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think it's because they're scared and they're like, it's more likely they'll get caught.
Hmm. Another trend that's not necessarily recent, but it's just kind of a fact is there's geographic patterns. So they tend to pop up in specific areas.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of this is because of our highway system. So, like, Denver's terrible. It's terrible for human trafficking.
Hmm.
Had lots of serial killers roll on through Colorado. They don't usually stay here, but they
Mm-hmm.
come through here because so much traffic comes through Colorado, coast to coast.
Yeah.
But really, the coasts are where we see more of this stuff. New York, California.
Why is that? Because there's water to put the bodies in?
Well, I mean, the Midwest, we could make an argument it's all the lakes. There's so many lakes in the Midwest.
Yeah.
There are quite a few in the Midwest. I don't know. I don't actually know why it's in certain areas, but it just is. If you really look at a lot of cases,
Yeah. Well,
there
I
are
remember like
Alabama,
living in,
less of that.
yeah, I remember living in Seattle and,
Oh yeah.
people talk about the serial killers that were, like you said, along the coast and in the Washington area and all that. But yeah, you don't really hear of them in the South.
Mm-mm. No. So we know the majority of serial killers are men.
Yeah.
Significant. I have a statistics down here about
Yeah.
what it is, but it's like 85% of serial killers are men.
Okay.
Women account for the other percentage. Women are unknown, right? But women. And they have different methods and motives.
Mm.
And it's so interesting because we see this in domestic violence. It's also true with serial killers that women are violent for different reasons. Many times they're violent in different ways than men. And so that's kind of interesting to study.
Mm-hmm.
A large proportion of known serial killers and mass shooters have been white, but serial killers do and have come from all racial and ethnic backgrounds.
Hmm.
Most of them start their criminal activity in their 20s or 30s, which I thought that was kind of interesting. They still have antisocial behaviors younger.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I feel like I don't, maybe I heard that or I just kind of thought that because you don't hear of them doing a lot of stuff when they're much older,
Mm-mm.
like they're usually in the, yeah, 20s or 30s when we read about them.
Well, and the other thing is they kind of age out at some point too because it's hard to manage a body.
Well,
So
yeah,
either you get an assistant, like you know, some cases that are upcoming,
yeah,
or you kind of at some point have to hang it up because you can't do the things physically that you used to do. The risk goes up.
right.
However, there have been older serial killers, BTK killer. I mean, there
Mhm.
have been older serial killers.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like a workout to kill someone and then to,
Work out.
I mean, you like hear of all these
But it,
people like who stab people and like it's like I can't imagine that that's really easy to do.
mm,
You know what I mean?
no, that was one of the biggest things I heard about the Moscow murders
Yes.
in Idaho was just he was exhausted.
Yes.
Because there's so many questions. Well, why not the roommates? It's like, dude was done.
He was tapped out.
He was done. And we're going to see this in some of our upcoming cases where sometimes people stop because they're just exhausted. Like they just
Hmm.
have to stop for some reason, or
Hmm.
or it's not interesting anymore, or
Hmm.
whatever. So we'll talk
Hmm.
about that. There's not a specific socioeconomic background that makes someone more
Okay.
likely to be a serial killer, but there is typically a history of childhood trauma, abuse, or neglect.
That makes sense.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Psychologically, many times, most of the time, they also have antisocial personality disorder, which we've talked about the difference. But it's really important to know that mental illness does not cause serial killers.
Correct.
And most serial killers don't kill because of an underlying disorder, with the exception of antisocial personality disorder.
Correct.
And that's important because I think sometimes people assume, if you're mentally ill, that's why you start killing people. And that's true sometimes, but it's not the majority.
No, I mean, there's a correlation, but it's not a causation.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What do you think are the motivations for serial killers? There's a bunch of them, but what do you think are some of the big motivations?
Well, we kind of already said it, trauma.
Trauma.
Um,
But that's not
it,
necessarily a motive, it's a factor. But what's a motive?
sure. I think, but it could go with a motive. So,
Mm.
like if someone was abused by a specific, like if they were abused by their mom,
Yes.
go for a specific typology based on their abuser.
Mm.
Or if they got humiliated in some way, shape, or form by someone, that might be a motivation for their typology.
That's true.
So, so there's a few different motives as to who they go after. I do think the trauma piece could be both, obviously a factor and then also a motivator.
Hmm.
But then any sense of like humiliation, hurt, right? Getting broken up with.
Oh, sure. Power and control.
Yep, power and control.
Really, unfortunately, in many of the cases, sexual gratification, sexual deviance and gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just want to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's like hard for us to wrap our heads around, but that's just the truth. And we have a few cases coming up where that's the deal.
Yep.
That's the fixation.
Yep. But with those, do you think they have a type that they're looking for?
No, not
The
all.
ones that just want to kill?
Just want to kill.
Okay.
Yep. And I would argue that's actually the majority. So we tend to, because our media, and I'm going to get into this, but our media makes everything so big and they look at like, well, he kills all brunettes. They must resemble his ex-wife. And there's probably some layer of truth in many cases. But I would argue the majority of the cases are truly random. They're truly random. If you look across time with all the different victims, if you want to pick something that happens frequently, it's somebody in a vulnerable position. That's probably one of the biggest risk factors is you are homeless, you're in the clubs all night, you're a
Yeah.
prostitute, those are the people typically who get targeted because people don't report them missing. They don't have families out stomping the pavement trying to find them. They're
Mm-hmm.
kind of an easier target.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think many of these people are motivated by how it makes them feel. They just want to
Yeah.
kill people.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? And in that thing you and I talked about, I am God. So many
Mm-hmm.
mass shooters, so many serial killers
Mm-hmm.
get fixated on I am God. I control your destiny. I control if you live or die.
Yep.
I control if I
Yep.
live or die. It's
Yep.
very much comes back to that.
Yeah.
So, you ready for just some numbers?
I love numbers.
I know I do too, especially about this kind of stuff.
I know.
Um, the US has had over 3,600 known serial killers
Hmm.
in our history. Now there's
3,600?
3,600.
Wow.
Now, I think that number's a way higher than that, but those are the 3,600 that we
That's
know.
what I was gonna say. I was like, I'm kind of shocked.
Now, the FBI estimates that there are 25 to 50 active serial killers in the US at any given time.
Wow.
hmm So they're actually not often caught. Still,
Yeah. That's so crazy.
the real effective ones who stay off the radar,
Hmm.
target vulnerable people, much harder to catch them because you're so right about the
Yeah.
DNA, but if they've never been picked up before, their DNA's
Yeah. And if they're not targeting people that are within like their world,
yes.
if they're targeting homeless or, individuals who are strippers or prostitutes or whatever.
Yes.
Like you said, people who they believe won't be missed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the US has a disproportionately higher number of documented cases, documented serial killer cases.
The US
Uh-huh. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we have so many more documented cases
than like the rest of the world. I was
than the
gonna
rest of
say,
the world?
well, I mean, it just depends on, I guess, where. The US is pretty big, but I know it's not like the biggest.
Mm-mm. Certainly don't have the biggest population. We have a huge land mass. We
Yeah.
don't have the biggest population necessarily.
No, we don't. I don't know, to be honest.
I think, I think a couple of things. I think we have several major crime fighting divisions, right? Law
Mhm.
enforcement, government agencies looking at these things all the time. And they're pretty in depth. So I think we have a big wide net to catch people in,
Mhm.
and we have some pretty sophisticated technology and that kind of stuff. Also, our media is bonkers compared to the rest of the world. Our media makes things huge, spooky. We have Hollywood. How many films are coming out of Britain about serial killers everybody's obsessed with? There have been some,
Right.
but our country is obsessed with this stuff. We are true crime obsessed,
Yeah.
and so I think there's just more of an emphasis on it, both in terms of people developing kind of a desire to try some of these things, but also getting caught. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
confounding variable, right? They're more likely to get caught, but they're also maybe more likely to try it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, also, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, and I might sound stupid saying this, but like you go to places like Mexico. And I think there's a lot of bad shit that happens in places like that, and they just like sweep it under the rug because you can pay a pretty penny to
Oh
get
yeah.
out of something.
Oh, I agree with you 1,000%. And
So I
then,
think to some degree, some of it is like, you know, if you can pay your way out of this, then we got you.
hmm
And the US isn't as much like that. Obviously, we have, no system is perfect, but you know,
oh yeah. Well, and what's interesting is then I went, okay, so who are the most prolific serial killers in history? I start researching that.
uh-huh.
Number one, Luis Garavito, Colombia,
Hmm.
known as the Beast,
Hmm.
killed and tortured hundreds of children.
Damn.
He is one of the most prolific in history. Then we have the monster of the Andes, Pedro Lopez, killed hundreds of girls.
Hmm.
Then we have a name I'm not even going to attempt, a person from Hungary. She, a Hungarian countess, she was accused of torturing and killing numerous young women.
Mm,
Very high victim count.
interesting.
Someone from India who was a leader of the Thuggee cult in India,
Okay.
high number of murders, and then the werewolf,
Mm-hmm.
Mikhail Popkov in Russia, targeted women over many, many, many years.
Hmm.
His confirmed victim count's very high, and he's confessed to many murders. So the true toll, you may never know. And if somebody's been killing for 50 years, they don't even remember everybody. They get picked up when they're 70 and they can't even recall
Yeah.
all of it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that some of the most prolific in history are not from the US.
Yeah. Exact. That is wild.
You know what case we need to do? Jack the Ripper.
Oh, yes.
We got to do Jack the Ripper because there's some interesting research.
And the Manson murders.
We got to do the Manson murders. We have so many. I have such a list. I do a brain dump every day now because Mel Robbins tells me to. And I just have all these random things that come up. And I'm like highlighting things, like cases that I just someday really do want to get to.
Yeah. No, I was watching a documentary loosely, like just watching it while I was getting stuff done on the Manson murders, and that's crazy.
I know. No, it is absolutely wild.
And like the
Watching.
cult leader, like it becomes like this whole, like not becomes, but the correlation with cult leadership and mass murder and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's wild.
Oh, it's so intense to think about,
Hmm.
especially when a serial killer uses other people to do the thing in a cult-like setting.
Yep.
Why that's wild to me.
Yep.
So when we talk about men versus women, and you know this is one of my passions, right? Is how does this show up in women versus men?
Hmm.
So I said earlier, I thought it was 80 to 85%. It's 85%. 85% of serial killers in the US are
Hmm.
male. So the remaining 15% are generally thought to be women.
Okay.
And as we know, there's a whole continuum with gender and everything now. So I'm going to be binary in this instance because that's how the research is.
Yeah.
So here's the key difference in motives, victim selection, and methods. You
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
Male serial killers often have motives related to sexual gratification, power, and control. That
Not
makes
surprising.
so much sense to us,
Yeah.
right?
It's not surprising at all.
None of this is surprising.
No.
Female serial killers are more frequently driven by financial gain or a desire to control those in their care.
Also not surprising.
Not surprising,
Hmm.
right? And when you think
Hmm.
about what's the name for like a nurse? Angel of death, angel of murder,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Women are sometimes in that kind of a role. They're in a caretaker role and they take
Yeah.
advantage of that role,
Yeah.
which that's just so spooky to me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I forget what it was. It was like, mm, no, I was thinking maybe it was like The Worst Roommate Ever on Netflix, but I don't think it was. But I watched something a long time ago, and it was basically that, like a woman would like start to be a caretaker of older people,
Yep.
and they would die, and all their belongings would go to her somehow, and it was like
Mm.
the whole thing.
My grandma had a physical
Mm-hmm.
therapist one time, and you know how obsessed I was with my dad's mom. I just love her so much.
Mm-hmm.
And she lived to be in her late 90s. So in her 80s, she had a physical therapist who would come to the house and work with her on things. Well, my grandma started like writing her checks and giving her jewelry and all this kind of stuff. And my grandma was struggling with just a little bit of dementia, not much, just a tiny bit. She knew us and everything.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, and it really upset my parents when we finally realized the scope of it, how much she had taken advantage of my grandma.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about how psychopathic that is to exploit someone in your care like that. I didn't know that
Hmm.
at the time, obviously, because I didn't have all the training I have now. But I'm like, I see you. Boy,
Hmm.
I would come at her a lot different now, you know.
Right? I know it's pretty wild. It is pretty wild what you see and like people's motive for things and all of that.
Well, and they're so vulnerable, you know? So victim selection, this is interesting too.
Hmm.
None of this is surprising, but it's interesting.
Hmm.
Male serial killers are much more likely to target strangers.
Not surprised.
Not surprised, right? And part of that is physical power, particularly
Yep.
if they're attacking a woman, right?
Yep.
Female serial killers often target people they know, family members, patients, acquaintances, that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
which makes sense, partially because a woman can kind of size up who she's going after, where a man's more likely to do a spree kind of an attack, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Female serial killers are also much more likely to use poison as a method of killing their partner.
Not surprising.
Mm-mm.
Less messy.
Less messy. Yeah, you don't have to get your hands too dirty doing that,
Mm-mm.
you know?
Nope. Sometimes harder to track, depending,
Yes. Yeah.
you know,
Oh, absolutely.
and less, like a little less impulsive. I think sometimes men get ahead of themselves a little bit, and there's like a sense of impulsivity there.
Yes.
Whereas women, I think, can be a little bit, and I'm not saying men can't be, but I think women historically tend to be a little bit more planned.
Well, and this is the thing, I agree with you. And the thing with psychopaths that's so fascinating, they can be meticulous
Mm,
in planning, and then it
mm-hmm.
all goes to shit in the first 10 minutes because they're so impulsive.
Yep.
And
We
they'll
saw
think
that with Brian Koberger, allegedly.
allegedly. Allegedly. Yes. And it's actually true in a lot of cases. When I do when I do our episode on psychopathy, I'm going to talk about some pretty hilarious stories that I'm learning
Uh-huh.
of psychopaths who do something really heinous or genius. Like they freaking break out of prison and then they get in a helicopter. They've coordinated all this stuff and they land on an island like 20 miles from the prison
Mm-hmm.
in the wilderness. It's like, huh, where'd the
Mm-hmm.
helicopter go? I mean, it's just stupid. But the
Mm-hmm.
planning to get there was, I mean, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of known for that. So, and serial killers are very much that way.
Yep.
So here's my question for you, and then we'll discuss a little bit more.
Okay.
Can a serial killer be rehabilitated?
Oh gosh.
I know. I saw this question when I was preparing. I was like, oh, goodness.
That's a really
I think
big
about
question.
that, right?
That's a big question. Can a serial killer be rehabilitated? I think it depends on
Hmm.
the motive and their psychopathy and their, yeah, I think it really just depends because if I'm thinking of someone like
Hmm.
a what do you call them? Oh my gosh. When you hire someone, a hitman.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you think of a hitman,
Like a hired gun.
yes, like technically they kill a lot of people,
You're right. You're not wrong.
you know. I think they could, not all of them, but I think that typology could potentially be rehabilitated
Hmm.
because their motive is money. And
Hmm.
if they're not a sociopath or they're like lower on the psychopathy spectrum,
Yeah.
you can turn humans into humans a little bit easier.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think it really just depends.
Oh, totally.
Which is the most annoying answer to everybody because that's like every therapist answer is it depends. But
I have an easier one.
what?
No.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm. And I know this is weird. You can't see the face she's giving me. I'm always the one who's like, there's a way. Positivity is
Yes.
my number one strength, optimism, all the things.
I
No,
know. I'm usually the one that's like, nope, lock
I
them
know.
all up forever.
This is why we balance each other out. I'm gonna say no, and here's my reason. I think, let's say it's a hired gun, even, which I agree with you. Of all of the serial killers, that's probably the one you might be able to get some
Hmm.
movement with. The problem is if you have a psychopathic person who kills for really any reason,
Hmm.
they're always going to find a reason to kill.
Hmm.
That's what's hard is it's like if they're trying to do things to further themselves, money, comfort, gratification, whatever the motive is, you can try real hard to get these folks to play by the rules, and we can do that with psychopaths. We can do that with people with antisocial personality disorder. They're treatable. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about I've worked with really quite a few gang members over the years, and there's a big difference between your regular standard issue gang member and your like enforcer,
Yeah, for
kind of
sure.
like the hired gun, right?
Yeah.
They're impossible. They're
Hmm.
just impossible. And I love
They
that
are.
population.
Yeah, they are pretty hard.
And they're impossible because they've made a decision or their brain has all the differences we've talked about with psychopathy. So
Hmm.
we can try to get them to meet their needs in another way, but they're always probably going to be more successful killing people. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
And they're not that scared of prison. So it really
Yeah.
is not that great of a deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, the death penalty, this is the thing that kills me about the death penalty. I am not pro death penalty for a million reasons, not the least of which is we have human error in the system.
Sure.
Also, it's not a deterrent to a
Hmm.
true blue psychopath serial killer. It's not a great deterrent. They don't
Sure.
think about long-term consequences ever.
Hmm.
That's not they don't- one of the deciding factors on a psychopath is they don't have a long-term plan. They are not thinking about it. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't.
They just don't care. So it doesn't really inspire anything. Now,
Right.
here's how I want to break it down with you.
Okay.
Do we think psychopathy, depending on the degree of psychopathy, is treatable?
Hmm. Ask that again.
Do we think that psychopathy, depending on where they are on the continuum, because we've talked about it really is about
Yeah.
high psychopathy, low psychopathy,
Yeah.
whatever, are they treatable?
Yeah, I think they are.
They can be. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we literally treat people on the spectrum of psychopathy.
Yes. We know antisocial personality disorder is treatable. We do that every day.
Hmm.
You and I literally do that work every single,
Hmm.
but it is challenging, right?
Hmm.
When you look at the motivations, which sometimes are rooted in psychological disturbances, early childhood trauma, can we treat those things?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's the most treatable part.
Yes, exactly. I was like, I feel like this is a trick question because it's yes,
Uh-huh.
absolutely.
Now, risk assessment. Can we accurately and thoroughly assess risk of reoffending in a serial killer?
Can we assess correctly if they'll reoffend?
Yes.
Ooh, I don't know, man. That's
This
a
is
tough
where it
one.
falls apart. This is where it falls apart for
So
me.
kind of,
No,
I don't think we
we
can.
can't. We
Yeah.
can't. So this is where serial killer slash sex offender, depending on the severity, I
Yeah.
think comes into play.
Yeah.
Am I willing to risk someone else's life
Yeah.
on my limited ability to assess your risk?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
answer is no.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should. I think we need to honor the lives of victims
Hmm.
over the lives of a serial killer. And I think a
Hmm.
serial killer should remain in containment probably forever, with very
Hmm.
few exceptions.
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It falls apart. That's the thing. So,
Well, and you don't know, like, it's with that, like sex offenders, serial killers, the triggers are so strong.
yes,
Like you think of DV and DV's along the same continuum.
it is. Yeah, it is.
However, a lot of DV, not all of it, I will say
Yeah,
not all of it,
no.
a lot of DV is treatable based on trauma, experience, coaching, like even
Criminogenic needs.
criminogenic needs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? There are times that I've seen where they need to do jail time.
Yes. We've
Jail is
recommended
the
it before. We don't love to, but we have.
Yes, jail's the best place for some individuals. But when it comes to sex offenders and yeah, the risk is so high.
So high.
Yeah.
So high. I know. So then we talk about we don't have great proven methods.
Hmm.
There's some effort that there's some effort. There's some evidence that CBT, MRT, which we've talked about a million times, that some of these things can restructure a person's thinking. But
Hmm.
we also know many of them have neurological differences. So
Mm-hmm.
can their behavior be modified if their brain chemistry is so different and the structure of their brain is so different that they don't process information the same way?
Right.
Well, no,
Oh yeah, no, you can't.
you really can't,
So
right?
I thought you were making the point that you can't.
Yeah, you just can't. You
No,
can't.
you can't.
So then with the ethical concerns, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? Because we love people and we want to help people. We have to decide, do we elevate the community and the safety of the community over the experience of a serial killer when the truth is the serial killer has robbed other people of the opportunity to live?
Right.
So this is where I'm kind of a hard ass, where it's like,
Right. We absolutely keep the community and the typology individuals safe.
we have a responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
keep them safe. And so when some of our clients get worked up because probation doesn't understand them, you and I have to explain, okay, we're here for you.
Yep.
We are trying to keep the community safe, but we are
Yep.
here for you.
Yep.
Victim advocate sitting across the table at us going, how are you going to keep my person safe?
Yep.
Then you have probation whose job is to keep victims safe,
Mm-hmm.
community safe, sometimes us safe. We've had
Mm-hmm.
probation officers reach out to us worried about our safety based on how someone's talking about us.
Yep.
I mean, when you really take all of those factors into consideration, very few people are equipped to
Mm-hmm.
determine the risk of recidivism in a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get it wrong, people die. That's the
Right.
problem,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
what we know about sex offenders is
Mm-hmm.
there are times when they just cut their ankle monitor off, go do what they want to do because they just don't care. They care more about the urge and the behavior than they do about the consequence.
Yep.
So we're not talking about every criminal. I mean, this is a
Mm-hmm.
vast minority of humans on earth, right?
Yeah.
But I think when this happens, I do not believe that they can be rehabilitated to a degree that makes the community safe.
I think giving them treatment is still important.
Oh, I think they should be again treated with respect. I
Mm-hmm.
think they should be safe in prison. I don't think they should be hurt in prison. I'm not that kind of girl.
Mm-mm.
And I think they could do some treatment in prison and find some meaning in their life potentially. They just have to be incarcerated long time to protect the public. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And we don't do that very well,
No.
you know?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what do you think about all this, knowing the cases we have coming down the pipe and especially the one Friday?
I think it's helpful for our listeners to hear it, to be honest.
I think so too.
I don't think there's a lot of crime podcasts out there that have the ability to dive into what you and I both know
Mhm.
because of what we do for work, and so I think it's helpful for our listeners.
I think so too. So I really appreciate you guys all listening. Stay tuned for Friday's episode. It's a really intense, interesting, creepy
Hmm.
episode, but I think you guys will enjoy it. And Nat, come on, baby Gray.
I know. We'll see how this goes this week.
We'll see how this week goes. When I know something, you'll know something.
Perfect. I have our I will plan to put her once we're home in her newborn Forensic Friday onesie
Oh, I can't
and,
wait.
and post it for all our people.
I cannot wait, Nat. I'm so excited.
I
And
know.
we
I
are,
got to get her a pink one for the conference.
oh, I know. They're so cute.
I
We need to
know.
get one for all the little cousins too.
Yes.
Line them up.
Yes.
So, should we tell them about exactly what our merch is going to be, or should we wait?
Oh, let's wait.
Okay, maybe we'll tell you Friday, maybe we won't. We'll leave
Yeah.
it in suspense, but it's real good.
It's you guys, we spent way too long
We
trying to
did.
figure out this one small piece out, but we did it.
We did
I would
it
like to
so
take
good.
credit. I did it.
You did it, but it
I
was my
figured it out.
idea.
It was your idea, but I figured out how to do it.
You totally did. I just kept staring at the screen. It was a
Yeah.
joint effort, shared screen situation, and I'm real proud of us.
Yes.
And I want it on everything.
I know
I
it's going to
want
be
it
the
on
best.
a wine glass. I want it on a
Oh
t-shirt.
my gosh, a wine glass.
I know.
That's
I
perfect.
know.
Oh, we need to get the Yeti tu wine tumblers for the conference with that.
Oh, that's genius.
I know.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, we will do that. Pop on up to Breckenridge this summer, buy some merch in person.
Yeah, we'll also do some giveaways, so stay tuned.
We will. Well, thank you guys so much. We will see you on Friday. And as always,
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.